Yes, I was just wondering, how many years now has it been since you founded the school?
We started in 2008. We were at a different site then. We weren't allowed to make that school any bigger because it was on church ground and it was a little complex how to do that. So we moved down the road about 6 kilometers and we've been at this new site. We opened at the very beginning of 2010.
Okay.
So I think that's 11 years for this.
You've done amazingly well in so many areas in that short a time. It's wonderful.
It's been a lot of fun too. So many great volunteers and generous people in Canada.
I said, Kathy, it always amazes me whenever 2008, whenever you came back from Madagascar, and that area was just a barren place with no buildings whatsoever, and how it has absolutely grown. It's wonderful to hear the volunteers bring us up to date on what's going on. And of course, we can't thank Graham Wells enough for what they have done with Tennequin.
How many of are all of your staff from the area?
Yes, everybody's from Madagascar. A couple of them live in the city but come out. Now we have 7 families living right on campus. So they're all Malagasy. And when volunteers go over, they help in the classes, but they don't ever take over a class or anything.
Have banana trees and growing on the school property now?
Yes, we do. Yeah. Now, Linda's there. She was there when we planted a bunch of trees, and those banana trees were the saddest looking things you ever saw. We thought we never thought they'd make it, but they've grown into beautiful banana trees. And I was told this year that they had enough to give all the children bananas at one point. So that's a lot of bananas.
I was amazed to see how many more trees were growing in that area than when I was there. It's well done.
Yeah, it's becoming greener and greener. It's lovely to see.
I have another question on the chat asking how many Toonie twins we have.
I think it's just a little over 400 students that are being supported by Toonie Twinning. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, I was going to say, Helena, we now need to do all the mountains with the trees. And we have enough firewood. They have to go a distance that equals an hour and a half of walking now in order to buy the wood, because there are so few trees. So we really need to get planting and growing. And we discovered that we would need 17 of those solar cookers if we wanted to cook the food only with the sun. And we could actually do that, but the hard thing is changing the culture. The people know how to boil water with burning wood, and we have 2 solar cookers there, but it's hard to get them to use it because they're just not convinced that the rice will be ready in time. Even though it will.
Do the trees you plant grow quickly?
No, Shirley, it's awful to see. I've been there like 3 and 4 years where they don't look any different than they did when I was there the year before. So we're trying to give them lots of fertilizer in the form of manure, but it really is quite amazing how depleted the soil is. I think this great big reservoir is going to help us a lot. Hopefully we'll have enough water to be able to keep the trees going.
That would be great.
Kathy, do you have any way of storing rainwater in the rainy season?
Yeah, we talked a lot about that this year. We had plans to run pipes off the buildings into a big reservoir, mainly to water the gardens, because apparently it wouldn't be potable, that water. And so we may do that in the future. But this year we're going to use the water from the source, which we should have a lot of during the rainy season. We'll hope to keep it in that reservoir and see how that goes. We actually won't be able to do that until the fall of 22 because the rainy season is over now and we haven't built our reservoir yet. So it'll be a little time, but once we see how that does, if we still need to collect rainwater, we'll do that as well. It was an interesting discussion over whether to buy that source or not, because our people really wanted us to buy it so that we'd have enough water. And there was talk that it might be diverted to another village. And then our principal pointed out that water is everybody's and we can't be entitled enough to buy water that others need and so on, and that we all have to be part of the same, we're all in this together, we all have to share the water. So I was glad for that perspective.
Kathy, I also have a question about those 4 children that are going to university, or however many that are going to university. Are they able to pay for their tuition and everything themselves, or does the school pay for it, or can we send money specifically for their tuition?
Yes, we've started a scholarship fund, and Graham Wells is actually in charge of that. He's collecting the funds, and then we decide from that how many we can sponsor. And understanding that we have to carry them for 4 years. So we're adding 4 students this year, and hopefully next year we'll be able to do another 4 or 5 and carry on like that. We have 3 right now that are going through school. So yes, if people feel like giving to the scholarship fund, that'll be wonderful. And the more students that want to go and have the ability, the better, I think. Peter talks about how we're raising the intellectual capacity of our people in our area that'll end up running the school. So
how much is it like to sponsor a post-secondary student for the 4 years?
yeah, the state university is free tuition, but they do need to buy a computer and pay their rent and their bus fare and buy their food and all that sort of thing. Then there are many private schools that are more expensive but are good. And if they can't get into the public university, they'll go to one of the private schools like Miura did. And there they have to pay tuition. And so it varies, but about $4,000, I believe we figured would between 4 and 6 would get a student right through their university years.
Do people contribute to the scholarship fund that is pooled, or do you provide a whole scholarship?
We provide the whole scholarship, and when we get donations, it goes into that special fund for scholarships, and then we can decide when we know who's been accepted into university or college, then we can go forward with them. And their teachers also write up for us who they think would be best and so on. We're also giving a little course to them to prepare them for life in the city, because many of them have never left their village before.
Right.
So living in the city is quite a different experience. So we're also helping them on that end of things. Thanks for your question.
I have another question here on the chat. Can somebody would like to know if they can ship things to the school, such as soccer balls, or should they just donate money towards that purpose?
We've shipped things before, and it's getting increasingly difficult to ship and very expensive. And the other thing is that if we buy it there, it helps the economy there a lot. So much appreciated if a donation could come instead of the actual material, and then we'll buy soccer balls in the city. Thanks for that question.
Have you thought of using biomass, bio waste from the human waste and any animals in the area for fertilizing the gardens and so on?
Yes, Karen, thanks for that. Thanks for that question. We've been really thinking hard about that. We installed a biogas composter about 4 or 5 years ago, And at the time, we were told that a bucket of cow manure would suffice to fill it up, and it did, but it got used up very quickly. Before it boiled one pot of water, it was used up. And so, yes, using human waste is the very best thing to do. People didn't quite seem ready for that, and I wasn't convinced that there was the expertise in the country yet, although I know it's happening all over India and other places in the developing world. But from our first experience, we didn't go on with that. And then we brought up the topic of composting toilets, and Kathy St. Pierre was supposed to help in her 3 months over there to get those going. But since Kathy had to come home, and the Malagasy people are very shy, and the idea that anybody would have to deal with their waste, it just was a no-go. So, yeah, that might not happen, although maybe over time. But it's really, this whole experience has been such a journey in culture and understanding that, we can bring up ideas, but until the people are ready to embrace them, they are just ideas.
What's the culture shock like?
Well, I can answer a little bit of that, but I think from a point of view of someone who's done a fair bit of traveling, the shock happened some years ago. I don't count. No, in 1969, I spent a summer in Kenya, in Mombasa, and going there was interesting, but it was the reverse culture shock of coming home that really hit me at that point. And once you've gone through that, it ceases to be anything other than something you can't talk about with anybody that hasn't experienced it.
And you just wonder, when you're over there, at least I always find when I come back, I'm amazed at all the things I need when I'm in Canada, with like running water and bathtubs and stuff like that. But when I'm there, I never feel like I'm wanting anything.
That's really interesting. It's the same way. I think I could go over there with a very small pack sack and do very well.
Yeah.
When I was over there, at one point the culture shock came when I thought we would have no water because the cistern, it stopped and there was no place. I thought, okay, we're going to die here. Like it was just, I just felt so worried. And we walked to whatever the closest little town was. They had a little store and I couldn't even buy water there. I could buy soft drinks and I could buy hard drinks, but no water. But the people were very good. Like men went out to another water source and brought us pails and pails of water because they said that people from Canada needed lots of water. I found that quite an experience, but I couldn't believe how my whole body just went, oh my goodness, no water. So I can see the importance of that cistern. I think it'd be a great idea.
Well, the generosity you experience when you're over there is incredible. The people are willing to really do just about anything for you. I was lonely and they brought me a puppy. The idea of having a dog living in your house was very foreign to them, and they had a lot of fun watching me cheer when he went outside to the bathroom. But they were willing to help in any way they possibly could.
Kathy St. Pierre, were you going to say something about volunteering?
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't have a huge culture shock because I too have traveled a bit, and because I've been in Africa before. Like when I was in Africa, I actually went bush camping with the locals. And Peter and Fran had talked to me so much ahead of time because we're from the same town that I was well prepared for what to expect when I got over there. But yeah, the culture, they're just so giving and loving, and they just took me under their wing. I was there completely by myself, couldn't speak the language, only knew a little bit of French, and they just totally looked after me. So it was a fabulous experience and I can't wait to go back.
I have a question, Kathy. I'm Andrea. Live out in Calgary. What is the situation in Madagascar with AIDS?
We never had a lot of AIDS because it costs so much to get to the island. You can't get there for less than $1,000 from anywhere. So it means that there's not a lot of transients. Yeah, it was 0.3% is what I heard of the population had been affected by AIDS.
As most of you know, Roxmore Public School have been doing fundraising for a few years, quite a few years, in fact, except this year because of COVID. We could not sell our toys. Also, that means that nobody came to my classes and do a presentation. So, Kathy, would it be possible to do via Zoom or Teams?
Yep, we have been recording this. And also maybe Justin could make another trip.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll make sure that we write to one another and figure out a time.
I wanted to say too how much we appreciate all the teachers are doing in classrooms. I see as I look around, we have so many people here that go out of their way with their schools to raise money and raise awareness. And you're certainly doing a great job because the young people today are all burning souls when it comes to helping.
Hi, Kathy. Wanna hear from Peace River?
Yes.
I was wondering what would be challenging for volunteers who would like to go over, what they need to get prepared before, and how do you actually have these two questions? The first one is the volunteering challenging situations which they can encounter moving over there or traveling over there. And second, how do you choose your priorities for what you need to achieve in that in this year, for example? Thank you. And by the way, I'm truly impressed with all the work which was done in the projects, and all the presentations, all 3 presentations were impressive and full of heart. And I'm truly grateful I got to see what's going on in that part of the world. Although I knew only from the cartoon Madagascar what is the real life is going on, it's absolutely uncomparable. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I should let the volunteers answer maybe what the challenges were. In the early days, it was all about rats and spiders and things, bugs that get into your toes, but now we're living in a little nicer spot.
Electricity used to be a problem, but now we seem to have that sorted. We run mostly off solar panels and a generator, but it's quite a luxury in such a rural area to have electricity, so we're very lucky. Also, water can be a bit of a challenge if you want a running shower, but we mostly deal with that.
I think I would add that depending on what your dietary preferences are, you need to know that there's no refrigeration at the school. And so therefore meat and dairy and the things that some of us are quite fond of in Canada are not really available, except if you have the opportunity to go into the city for a weekend and then you eat at a restaurant and have all the things you might be missing. Cooking is done on 2 burners of a propane stove, so there's also no baking. So just thinking ahead about some good stovetop recipes is probably a good idea. It wasn't desperately hard, but I did have to get my head around it.
Yeah.
Madame takes care of volunteers. She picks you up at the airport and makes sure that you're never in danger. We used to walk alone. I used to walk alone and take buses all the time, and now they like to keep us in view. So they drive us everywhere. Oh, I think you had another part of your question, Ione. You were asking about how do we decide on priorities. Teacher training is one of the biggest ones, and gardening, because we'd like to help the school become self-sufficient one day, and we're thinking that gardening, producing produce, is one way that we can make some money for the school. but they have their own methods of gardening. So volunteers often are asked to help with language learning. The teachers all want to learn English and French. Fran did a lot. They're not computerized yet with their class lists. At least our secretary isn't. She wants to learn computer, but needs a good lot of time and patience to do so, to get all our lists on digital. And then lots of things around, lots of fix-it jobs. They haven't had tools all these years, so they don't know how to use really a wrench and pliers. They're just learning now that we have the rice mill to keep going. And so any kind of fix-it work, I think when Peter was there, he helped them with the idea of the hand washing stations and how they could do that.
Thank you so much for all the details. What you said that the solar power, the solar panels are providing the electricity. Do they have the opportunity to store the energy produced, the electricity produced, or is just used at the time? How is that working?
Yeah, we have 4 batteries, and so we do store it. And I think it's working well enough now that it's on right through the night. At times when we've had trouble, when our batteries were getting tired, you're right, it would go when the sun was shining and it would turn off around 5 p.m. So, but we always found when there were volunteers there that it was a lovely time. People would take out their guitars and we'd sit and chat by candlelight, and we'd all go to bed by 8 o'clock and be ready to get up at 5, which is when their world starts. We have a wonderful group of volunteers and a great board, and none of this would be possible without all those folks who are helping, as well as all of you that keep donations coming so the project can run.